The following information is based on thoroughly researched and pure truth, something that many leaders and media are trying to abolish, create or maintain one-sided and secret agendas, or are just plain corrupt. And so, because some powerful entities do not want truth shared or revealed, creative and useful means are used here to carry the truth and purity of this message, regardless of those who may not want these truths to be known. But the biggest dilemma for those who hate or hide the truth is, they do not understand natural law, which is that regardless of intent or how much effort is used to hide the truth, and even regardless of intelligence or claims of ignorance, money, power, status, or skill in corruption, try as they do, but it will be to no avail, as they do not understand that they are in for a very rude and painful awakening, as they have not yet learned, but soon will, that the truth will always be revealed eventually.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Truth Over News. Numerous whistleblowers have come forward to expose the cover-up of family corruption. The whistleblowers, who are from within the but whose identities remain unknown, told Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley that in August of 2020, just ahead of the presidential election, the illicitly shut down the investigation into criminal activities by falsely claiming that the evidence against the was Russian disinformation. The FBI's fraudulent actions directly seeded the widespread media narrative that any information about family corruption is part of a Russian plot. Even more incredibly, the agent who shut down the Biden investigation is the same agent who was all over the Trump-Russia investigation. He was responsible for the fraudulent Carter Page warrant and for covering up the fact that had disavowed the Steele dossier, and for drafting Obama's phony intelligence community assessment on alleged Russian election interference. If that wasn't enough, he was also involved in the scheme to frame General The FBI employs approximately 35,000 staff, but somehow just one man was responsible for many of the key decisions that impacted President Trump in the 2016 and 2020 presidential elections. That man is a supervisory intelligence agent who has just been exposed by whistleblowers as the man who shut down the investigation into the family's financial and other crimes by asserting that all the evidence against the was Russian disinformation. Incredibly, is the same agent who prepared the fraudulent Carter Page FISA warrant, which the used to spy on the Trump campaign and later on Trump's transition and administration team. The FISA was based almost entirely on fraudulent claims that knew to be fabrications. And he was also the agent who interviewed in October of 2016. In fact, he was tasked with verifying the stories in the Steele dossier, all of which turned out to be falsehoods. Publicly, leadership said the opposite. The FISA court, Congress, and the public were all told that the dossier was real. While all this was going on in 2016, other agents were texting each other that had some serious problems staying in bounds, and that would get them all into trouble if anyone ever scrutinized what was really behind the phony investigation. But no one stopped Biden. Despite the fact, or perhaps because of the fact, that Biden was known for his reckless pursuit of Trump, leadership kept assigning him to all major parts of their fraudulent investigation. Not only could he be counted on to ignore the facts, tasking him would also provide perfect cover and deniability for leadership. Biden's role in pushing the fake Russia collusion narrative did not end with the 2016 election. After the election, Biden was tasked with compiling fraudulent dossier for Obama's intelligence community assessment. That was the assessment that was hung around Trump's neck before he even became president. It claimed, without any evidence whatsoever, that propelled Trump to victory in 2016. By attaching Steele's lies to an official U.S. intelligence community product, Orton and the ensured that the dossier would gain legitimacy, which is exactly what happened. As soon as the assessment was written, the fact that it included the dossier was leaked to the media, which then immediately and breathlessly started promoting the dossier's many lies. That one event is what kicked off Russiagate in the media. But Orton wasn't done. Only a few days after that, was involved in, or at least copied in on, the scheme to frame General Martin. And 2 days later, Orton popped up again. Incredibly, it was Orton who interviewed Steele's fake dossier source. As we've reported many times on this show, it was in that interview that disavowed the dossier, claiming that the dossier was just hearsay and gossip, rumors and bar talk made in jest. That should have been the end of the investigation, but made sure that it wasn't. He helped leadership cover up what Politico said and ensured that the phony witch hunt would continue. And if all that wasn't enough, when the then Republican-led Congress started looking into the Russiagate scam, guess who was put in charge of redacting the documents requested by Congress? Yes, once again, it was. And so now we find out that the guy who was involved with every major part of the scheme to falsely pin collusion on Trump, from fraudulent FISA warrants to covering up Steele's lies, was the same guy who was in charge of and shut down the investigation. As Senator Grassley put it in his new letter to the Attorney General, if these allegations are true and accurate, the Justice Department are and have been institutionally corrupted to their very core, to the point in which the United States Congress and the American people will have no confidence in the equal application of the law. Senator Grassley is right. How on earth is it possible that one crooked agent was put in charge of every key aspect of the election-related investigations, both in 2016 and in 2020? It's easy to blame former Director James Comey, but he left in 2017. Everything that happened after that happened on the watch of current Director Christopher Wray. Wray told Congress in February of 2020 that employees that were mentioned in Inspector General Michael Horowitz's report in connection with the unlawful spying on Carter Page had been referred to the Office of Professional Responsibility, the disciplinary arm.
Where there are people who are still left, most of whom are effectively at the line level, or at least were at the time of the Inspector General report, they've been referred to our Office of Professional Responsibility, which is our disciplinary arm.
Why Orton, who was extensively criticized in the Inspector General's report, was not disciplined and instead put in charge of the investigation remains Wray's secret. We already knew that the interfered in the 2016 election by conducting a phony investigation into at the behest of the Clinton campaign. We now know that they again interfered in the by covering up the family's financial crimes. Orton closed the case by claiming that the evidence was the product of foreign disinformation. He knew this to be untrue. How can we be sure? Because by the time Orton shut down the investigation in late summer of 2020, the FBI had had a laptop in its possession for 9 months. It would have taken no more than a few minutes to establish that the laptop was real. When we reviewed the laptop in October of 2020, we were immediately able to match contents on the laptop to external sources, such as messages from Biden associate Tony Bobulinski. The FBI had far more extensive evidence of the laptop's authenticity. To name just one example, unlike us, the FBI had huge amounts of evidence from its FISA warrant on Patrick Ho, the Biden associate who was known to Hunter as the spy chief of China. We reported on his dealings with Ho and Ho's partner, Chinese Communist Party princeling Ye Jianming, in a previous show. What all this means is that the FBI had access to every single communication between Ho and Hunter. Those communications matched the Ho and Hunter communications on Hunter's laptop, meaning that it was all real. There was no plot. Given everything we've just gone through, it's difficult to imagine how the FBI could have been even more corrupt, but they managed to do just that. According to Grassley, the HQ team's investigators placed their findings with respect to whether reporting was disinformation in a restricted access subfile reviewable only by the particular agents responsible for uncovering the specific information. In other words, having closed the case under false pretenses, headquarters locked the evidence in a file where no one could find it. The fact that this was a deliberate scheme by the is further evidenced by a very peculiar briefing the FBI gave Senator Grassley at the exact same time that it was closing the Biden corruption case in August of 2020. As Grassley explains in his new letter, the FBI came to tell him that his own investigation into the Biden family's Ukraine activities may have been tainted by Russian disinformation. Grassley knew that not to be true, but it didn't matter. The fact that the briefing took place was promptly leaked to the media, tainting everything Grassley said and creating the Russian disinformation narrative. There's another peculiar coincidence. The case against the Bidens was closed at a very critical time, just as the 2020 presidential election was hotting up and just weeks ahead of news of the laptop and of family corruption emerging in the New York Post. In retrospect, it looks like and the leadership knew what was coming and prepared the ground for Democrats and for the media. If and when the laptop became public, all Democrats and the media had to do was blame Russia, just as the FBI had done. No doubt, the 50 intelligence officials who fraudulently claimed that the laptop was a Russian disinformation campaign also took their cue from the FBI. This is without doubt the worst case of election interference in US history. Worse than Nixon, worse even than Russiagate. It makes Putin's alleged Facebook ad buys look like a trivial prank. 16% of Biden voters later admitted that they would not have voted for Biden had they known about the laptop. And we now know that it was the FBI that was at the center of the cover-up. As if all that wasn't bad enough, the new revelations also create a massive new problem for Special Counsel John Durham in his case against Steele's fake source. Daniel is accused of lying to the FBI. The problem is that it was who interviewed Daniel. With credibility completely torn to shreds by Grassley's stunning revelations, it will be easy for Daniel's attorneys to create reasonable doubt. They might even suggest that framed their client. And even if they are not successful in persuading the jury that Daniel was set up by a totally out-of-control FBI, they still have the materiality defense, specifically that it didn't matter what Daniel told the FBI because they were out to get Trump no matter what. If Durham claims that the FBI wasn't able to properly vet Steele's dossier because of Daniel's lies, all Daniel has to do is show that it made no difference. The FBI wasn't interested in vetting the dossier, they just wanted to take down Trump. Alton's actions prove that beyond any doubt. It seems like the only chance left for Durham to salvage his investigation and for the country to begin the process of fixing the deeply corrupted FBI is for Durham to finally start pursuing the FBI itself, something he should have done from the start.